Welcome to today's webcast presentation. Succession Planning is your organization planning for success. We're delighted to have you join us. My name is Damien Williams, and I will be moderating the webinar today. This webcast is slated for 60 minutes. The presentation will last for approximately 45 minutes, and we will leave about 15 minutes or so for the end for Q&A. Before we get started, I'd just like to address a few housekeeping issues. If you would like to toggle between full screen and meeting mode, you may do so by clicking on the blue square button at the top right-hand side of the control panel. If you are experiencing technical difficulty during this event, please submit a question in the question and answer section, which is preferred, or email help@rock-group.com. We will be recording this presentation, and this will be made available to you to share with your colleagues in the next few days. Interaction. We would like to engage you in this webcast, and therefore a 15-minute Q&A session is planned at the end. However, if you would like to submit a text question during the webcast, please type in the question in the Type Your Question area provided on the toolbar at the right-hand side of your screen. Your questions will not be viewable by other attendees. Questions relating to the topic will be addressed, time permitting, during the Q&A session at the end of the webcast. Technical questions will be addressed as soon as possible. Any questions not addressed during this session will be answered by email. This webinar is the first in a series from Rock and Towers Perrin. They will be running on the last Thursday of every month. At the end of the webinar, you'll be sent a link to a short survey comprising just 8 questions. We would really appreciate your feedback, and it includes suggestions for future webinars. Now, without any further delay, let's move on to today's presentation. Towers Perrin and Rock, two organizations that are fully committed to human capital management. Let me introduce the two organizations to you today, for those of you who may be new to our organizations. Towers Perrin are a global professional services firm helping organizations improve performance through effective people, risk, and financial management. They have deep and broad expertise in HR function effectiveness. And importantly, they work with more than 3/4 of the Fortune 100 and other global companies, so that we will be benefiting from true industry insight today through their research. Rock are accredited SAP and global Nakisa partner, 100% SAP focused and 100% HCM focused, with over 300 consultants globally and dedicated practices in talent management. They have implemented SAP Talent Visualization many, many times and are the top contributors to the SAP Developers Network Forum on SAP TVN. Towers Perrin and Rock have a strategic alliance. As we have seen, both Towers and Rock specialize in human capital management. Both organizations have also been collaboration partners since 2007. In 2009, Towers Perrin's SAP HCM practice transferred to Rock, and a new strategic alliance was born to jointly service our customers' needs. Organizations now have access to true end-to-end HCM capability. I'd like to introduce our presenters today. Today's speakers are Tom Keebler of Towers Perrin and Stephen Burr of Rock. Tom is the Global Practice Leader of HR Function Effectiveness at Towers Perrin. He has particular expertise in HR strategy, structure, function design, and technology. Stephen Burr is a solution architect at Rock. He is the global lead for SAP Talent Visualization and has many, many years of designing and implementing Nakisa and SAP TVN solutions. Welcome, Tom, and welcome, Stephen. Over to you, Tom, to set the scene.
Thank you very much, Damien, and good afternoon or good morning, everyone, depending upon where you are. I'm happy to join you today in today's conversation about succession planning, and I thought we might start this conversation off just by setting a little bit of context around what it is that we're seeing both from Towers Perrin research as well as anecdotally that clients are doing out there right now in the succession planning space. And as you'll see in a moment, out of all the different areas of HR and even within talent management, succession planning is one of the hottest areas of focus and energy for our clients going forward here for the balance of 2009 and moving into 2010. During the next few slides here, we're going to talk a little bit about some of the Towers Perrin research here, and specifically the HR Service Delivery Survey. For those that are on the call today that have not participated in the survey in the past, we, number one, would welcome your joining us this coming spring to join us in the survey. But this is our, the results we're going to talk about today come from the 12th annual HR Service Delivery Survey that Towers Perrin provides our clients. And the survey's focus, as you can see on this slide here, on a whole series of different areas that cover really the waterfront, if you will, of HR operations, service delivery, shared services, technology, and the like here. The data that we have to talk about today was from the survey fielded earlier, just a few months ago in March and April of this year. So it's data that we're well, we were already well into the economic turbulence that we've been experiencing here, and because of that, it provides some very good insights for us about where companies' thinking and where their energies are going forward. So we'll start with that on the next slide here, and I thought it would be interesting just to start a little bit here by talking a little bit about what, when we asked our clients what were your top service delivery issues, give us your top 3 service delivery issues for your organization where you're focusing your time, your investment, your energy here. And we were heartened to see that even in this economy, bubbling right up to the top there, we saw talent performance management systems. So talent management, performance management systems still very much top of mind, even in this economic situation here. And we'll talk about that a little bit more also coming up in a moment. Followed right on the heels of that here, almost identically, as you can see here, what number 2 was streamlining processes and using systems to help streamline processes as well. Followed, perhaps not surprisingly here, by cost, as being, for the first time ever in the 12 years here, cost being one of the top 3 drivers for our clients here. But again, very heartened to see right behind cost coming in and a desire to have HR be more involved, have a place at the table, whatever whatever the phrase is you'd like to use, but more involved in some of the strategic business-driven issues. So when you look at the top 4 issues here, 3 of them present or point directly to today's topic around succession planning. The fact that talent management, performance management are top of mind for everybody out there, very much around using technology to streamline your processes that you have now, and we'll talk in a couple minutes here about in succession planning how much of that is still very much paper-based, and providing HR services that very much align with and support the actual businesses and enterprise issues that are out there, which succession planning clearly does. As we move on to the next page here, a couple other sets of data here that come both out of the HR Service Delivery Survey as well as Towers' annual Global Workforce Study here. And we'll be happy to make available, if anybody would like copies of the executive summaries from these surveys here. The point that we're getting very clearly when we look at some of the other sets of research next to this here is even in these economic times here, we see that while organizations might be responding in the short term here by reducing their workforce, by looking to cut their short-term spending and all, we're hearing very clearly that a lot of this is being done in a short-term context, but very much with a long-term in mind here. And that organizations are being very mindful that the actions they're taking now need to still position them for the needs of the ongoing workforce as well as the needs of a growing workforce once the economic turbulence settles down here. When we delve specifically into some of the areas here where, again, asking organizations from a policy and program perspective, where are you spending your time also, we see that when you look at performance management and succession planning on the scale that we gave them here, these come out at the very top, much greater emphasis than the year prior. Will be now placed on performance management and succession planning. So a lot of organizations, again, turning to and putting a lot more emphasis on performance and succession planning here than they had in the past. And, again, very heartening from a program level as well as from a technology level here that we see this taking place, because we know that organizations have in the past delivered the succession planning in a spectrum of ways. Going back in time a little bit here, for a lot of organizations, succession planning was very much focused at the very top of the house, very much a paper-based process, and you kind of just had to have a succession plan in place to make sure that you could say that you had such a thing in place. And often it was a paper-based process that sometimes just was nothing more than notebooks sitting in the shelves. As organizations look to both implement succession planning more broadly through the enterprise beyond just the C-suite and top of the house levels, as well as look to do succession planning in a more effective fashion than perhaps it has done in the past, we find that organizations are very much then turning to technology to help support that, both to increase the efficiencies of it as you start to broaden it to a wider population, as well as to make it more effective. We can see that on the next slide here, just a couple data points from some of the talent management spotlight sections of the survey here. And we can see that organizations are clearly actually focusing from a programmatic perspective and a technology perspective on making succession planning happen within their enterprise. When you look at the right-hand side of this here around, has your organization clearly articulated succession strategy, we see that a fully 90% of the organizations either have one in place or are actively working to develop one at this point in time, which is a tremendous increase compared to what we would have seen if we had looked at this question a few years back here. In addition, we can see here that on the left-hand side in the corner here, fully 82% of the organizations are performing their succession planning activities at least once a year, if not more so. So we've got, again, a clear articulation around the strategy, both internally to the HR function as well as articulated to the enterprise around succession planning, and we're seeing that organizations are making a point of doing it on a fairly routine and formal basis now, as opposed to perhaps some of the more ad hoc approaches we may have seen in the past. To that point, on the next slide here, there's a lot of data on this particular slide. I encourage you at some point to come back to the recording and spend some more time getting comfortable with this. This particular slide reflects how organizations that participated in the HR Service Delivery Survey, 332 of them from around the world, are currently delivering a whole series of their talent management processes. So when we look at the whole talent management arena around compensation, recruiting, learning management, performance management, succession planning, and the like, this chart here shows us whether they're delivering this through their existing core HR system, using a third-party system, using an in-house or custom kind of tool, or looking or using a manual paper-based kind of approach. I draw your attention on this slide here to the very bottom row around succession planning, and what you can see quite clearly here is that succession planning is far and away the #1 item that organizations are still using in a very manual kind of paper-based mode here. If we were to spend some time going through the slides that kind of sit behind this data here, we'd see that in fact organizations are telling us that actually this is one of the most ineffective of the talent management domains as far as meeting business objectives, perhaps not surprisingly given it's paper-based. And we'd also see that organizations that respond that they're currently using a paper-based or custom in-house approach, which are 60% of the organizations out there, they are the ones who are indicating right now that they're actively looking and pursuing a technology-based solution for this. Many of them have RFIs or RFPs on the street, or in the process of vendor selection now, or in the process of implementing a technology solution at this point in time, which again is both, I think, understandable given a lot of organizations' active efforts right now to push more broadly into the organization with their succession planning, as well as their desire to make it more robust, make it more effective for the organization here. To that end, we'll take a peek at the next slide here. And I want to just give a quick feel for the penetration and the use of technology currently for succession planning, but also talk a little bit about the huge increase that we're seeing in focus on this coming forward here. This slide mirrors in some ways the prior slide here, but this one is focused around the questions that ask our client participants for the various talent management domains and processes that are out here. Tell us which of those you've enabled via manager self-service, using the web to allow managers to take control and have direct access to their data. Again, you can see the various domains and processes listed here. I'll draw your attention to the next to last one here, which is around succession planning. We can see that there are very few clients responding that they have already put their manager self-service in place for succession planning, only 18% of them that have done so. But if we look at the other two shades of blue, the medium shades of blue are those organizations that are implementing manager self-service for succession planning in 2009, and the lighter blue for those that have it on the budget and on the boards for 2010. So sometimes in your mind's eye, it's helpful to kind of combine these two together just to get a sense of where it is organizations are actually investing their time and energy. And what you can see there is fully 27%, over a quarter of the organizations that did not have management self-service in place for succession planning are focusing on putting that in place either during the balance of 2009 or in 2010. So both relative to the size of organizations that have already put it in place, as well as just absolutely speaking, a huge jump in the focus. They're actually one of the top areas of focus out of all the processes and domains that we polled in this particular survey. So a lot of emphasis and energy being put towards bringing that online. The same is true on the next slide here. If we kind of drill the same question from a different perspective, and since this is primarily an SAP audience today, I thought this may be of interest here. One of the things we ask our clients who are using the SAP HR capabilities here, HCM capabilities, we ask you to tell us a little bit about which of the modules have you actually fully implemented here. And again, these are modules that are actually implemented, not just modules that you have licensed. And again, same kind of approach here. The dark blue reflects those that have it fully implemented. The medium and light shades of blue, those organizations who are implementing at this moment or have it on the boards for 2010. Again, you can see here, if you spend some time looking at this again later on, if you look at all of the different domains in talent management, you'll see that they all have a significant amount of focus here in SAP. Relatively speaking, if you look next to the bottom here, you'll see in that next to the final row, succession planning, you'll see fully 15% of those organizations are intending, again, just those organizations that have SAP are intending to implement those modules, and they're either in the process of doing that right now or are intending to do that starting in 2010. So a significant jump overall in the prior slides from a broad-based look at all 332 participants here, as well as specifically for those clients who are using the SAP HCM, a huge focus that we're seeing on succession planning coming up. Having said all that, and being very heartened by the use of technology, let's take a peek and on the next slide here just talk about a couple things that our experience with our clients tells you need to be just a little bit mindful of as you embark down a path of implementing technology for your succession planning system. And I guess the overall kind of messaging around here is that it's not just about the technology. It's not just about the transaction here, that when you think about this, to think about it in the broad end-to-end succession planning process. And you need to think about both the foundation you need in place to make that work, as well as you need to think about the user experience for both managers, other HR professionals, as well as employees that may have access to some of this here. From a foundational perspective, you need to plan very carefully and to make sure that you are positioned and to make sure that you're drawing on good advice for putting your foundation in place before actually turning on the succession planning and self-service capabilities that may be here. So you want to make sure that you're thoughtful about how you have your organization management, your org structure in place to make sure that you have your overall job structures in place, to make sure you have your reporting trees and all in place, because those will be very critical to making sure that both the manager's self-service aspects and for security authentication, which we'll talk about in a bit, are slotted in place, as well as some of the other components needed to make sure that succession planning actually functions. You need to be very mindful of your position control to make sure that you have your roles laid out in this organization, to make sure that you have the skills and qualifications that can marry to these roles, such that you can both tie the individuals to specific roles, to specific skills and qualifications that are there, both for current state as well as you start to think about progressing them forward here as part of your succession planning. These are elements that you need to make sure that you have fully in place as your foundation before you put your succession planning stakes in the ground, if you will. You also need to think very carefully about some of the design elements here of your self-service experience. So again, think about it more than just a transaction. While in the end getting the data into the system is key, there is so much that needs to go on before that takes place in the manager's mind, in the HR professional's minds, and the like here as part of the broader succession planning process. So the transaction is very important, the data are very important here, but you need to remember that users that are doing this kind of work may not be very seasoned users, may be new to the succession planning process, may not do it on a frequent basis, may be just an annual kind of process, may not do it for a lot of employees. So as you think about the self-service experience, you need to make sure you design it with the overall experience in mind for the users here. So think about the content that you want to wrap around this to help them understand your organization's approach to succession planning, for example. Think about the kinds of things you'd want to put as far as coaching or decision support to help guide your users along the way here. In many ways, I like to think about this as, making sure that your online experience mimics what, in fact, you would do if you were sitting there over their shoulder helping them do this in person, making sure that they have all that kind of guidance that you want them to have. Think about the business rules that you want to put in place to help guide them through the actual transactions to make sure that they're putting data in place that makes sense, that suit the organization's needs and align with the organization's business objectives and business directions here. So again, you want to think very carefully about the foundational elements that are there. Think very careful about the self-service experience that you want to have around this. And while that sounds perhaps a little scary at this particular stage, the good news is there are solutions that are out there that both provide a lot of these design considerations in place here, as well as there are organizations that can help you think through this here that have done it for many other clients instances and users instances out here that allow you really to kind of use, or if you will, learn from some of the mistakes of others who are out there. But again, you need to be very thoughtful, very mindful as you wade into succession planning, just as you would performance management and other areas here. With that in mind, I thought it might be good perhaps to step a little bit out of the empirical or theoretical side of things and maybe actually spend some time looking at real life, what some of these solutions that do this well within the SAP arena would look like, and actually get a chance to layer some reality on top of that. So with that, Stephen, I know you're on the line here with us here. I'll turn it over to you, and if you would, take us through some of that.
Good day to everyone, and thanks to Tom for that insight into succession planning, particularly on how it's perceived, currently used, and planned to be used. First, let's consider why visualization is important. And here I've used the analogy of the iceberg to emphasize that the data exposed in most businesses is limited. While control and security is important with data, it's also key to actually use that business data to make informed business decisions. To get it right, keep it right, we need to involve the right people. Basically, I'm trying to communicate you can't manage what you can't see. This is exactly where ROC were in 2005 when we went through a process of selecting the right product for our customers. This resulted in us selecting and partnering with Nakisa. In 2007, SAP went through this process, implemented internally, and created the SAP Talent Visualization by Nakisa product as a solution extension of SAP. There is a very clear distinction here between the responsibilities of the two companies, with SAP owning the data, the processes, and enforcing its standards and security, while Nakisa is providing the visualization and usability for members of the organization that previously haven't been exposed to HCM data. The SAP TVN product itself is packaged by SAP, depending on the end user roles as shown on the right of this slide. The individual modules are listed as they are targeted at the employees, managers, and HR professionals within your organization. For more information on licensing, including the cost, then please speak to a SAP account manager. As a solution extension, the product is supported by SAP through the SAP Service Marketplace. Security is important with all data, but particularly with HCM data. And SAP TVN can leverage full SAP security, both for authentication, i.e. identifying who is accessing the application, and for authorization, i.e. for determining what they can or can't do or see. The latest version is SAP TVN 2.0 on Service 1, and this is the version you'll be seeing today throughout all the demos. However, before we look at the product, let's see how it fits into the overall SAP Talent Management Suite. This slide describes the full SAP Talent Management Suite, and it's a fully integrated approach to talent management with interlinked processes and a common data model. In the bottom left, you can see I've highlighted where the SAP Talent Visualization product helps in identifying and growing talent. On the next slide, you'll see just how interlinked these processes are. As Tom highlighted earlier, successful succession planning and talent management projects in general need to focus on the processes, not the functionality. This slide shows the integrated processes across talent management. Again, I've highlighted the identify and grow area processes, and we can see how data is used and fed into other processes. For example, you can see performance rating process feeding into the search for talent. Tom also emphasized and talked about the need to get the building blocks in place for a talent management project. So as an introduction to SAP Talent Visualization, I want to introduce the organizational chart applications for both visualizing and modeling data. When companies talk to us about getting their organizational data correct, it's often because the people that need to validate it just can't see it. The consequences of this is that critical processes are impacted. For example, workflow, approval processes, and any authorizations that are based on your position in the organizational hierarchy. When it comes to modeling and planning, organizations need to model future scenarios based on their existing data, and then they need to be able to collaborate. Okay, let's see how SAP TVM functionality can help you address these issues through a demonstration. This short demonstration will use SAP TVM org chart and org modeler applications. I'm going to use this to familiarize you with the navigation and show you how easy it is to visualize and model organizational data. Excuse me. This demo uses the out-of-the-box SAP TVN 2.0 org chart configuration with Service Pack 1 applied. 3 languages are supported in this version, English, French and German, but it should be noted that a language pack has recently been released from Nakisa extending support to 14 languages, including right-to-left language support. The aim here is to provide a view of the corporate organizational structure which is available to everyone. And this application is deployed via a portal application here at ROC, and I'm just going to make the screen as big as I can to try and give you the view of the actual data. The initial screen is the welcome page, and clicking on the org chart section immediately opens the structure, read directly from SAP. Give that a few seconds to open as we the org chart shown here provides details of the org unit structure, shown in the blue nodes, that are held in SAP, with the positions and current incumbents shown. A position-to-position or reporting structure can also be visualized. Just walk through some basic navigation. First of all, in these individual boxes. These allow you to expand or contract the levels of the organizational unit, and there's no technical limit on the number of levels you can display. Alternatively, you can expand the positions and view the current incumbents within those. I'll just expand the finance division. You can see a list of positions and people currently residing in those positions. You can also move to concentrate on a particular area by using this icon here, which will move this particular node to the very top of my chart and just remove the data surrounding it to give me a clearer view. Across this menu bar across the top, views are a way of changing the contents of these individual nodes, boxes. Styles actually change the layout of the boxes. Just demonstrate here. So to a very horizontal style. You can also zoom, which is pretty self-explanatory. And print and export options such as to PDF, PowerPoint, image and video are also available by applying the export pack from Nakisa. Searching allows you an easy access to find particular org units, positions, or people. Here I'm going to search for a person. I'm going to go and look for someone called David Belmont. A range of criteria is available that's applicable to the type of search you're performing, in this case employees. I've got such things as their first name, last name, position, which org unit they reside in. All the search results are sortable on columns, and once I've selected the one I want, David Belmont, I can click on him and view his details in full. The range of data shown here is the default, but this can be customized, and you can add tabs and pull further information from your own HR system as required. Now, another great feature is the ability, quickly I'll show you that you can jump from this person to where they reside in the organizational charts. In this case, this person resides in the management accounts organizational unit, and there he is there. Another great feature here in org chart is the ability to save this organizational chart and come back to it. This can be done either from the actions menu or simply by right-clicking. So this is a particular team that I visit often. I can quickly give it a name, save it, and it's available to me in the org chart menu in the top left. Show you that in a second. What I'll also do is show you that you can expand between 1 and 2 panes to give yourself more room. And if you do this, if you return, the panes and tabs are drag and droppable. So if you don't like having them on the left or the right, you can move them around to whatever suits you. To show you, there's that saved hierarchy for easy access in my menu now. And that saved hierarchy is applicable to me and saves a starting point of my data, the view I prefer, the layout I prefer, and the nodes that I had open for easy access. First, visualization. Let's now move on to modeling. Again, this demo uses out-of-the-box SAP TVN 2.0 with the Service Pack 1 applied. And the aim here is to provide a tool for HR professionals to model proposed organizational changes. You'll see straight away that my user ID is in the top right. So obviously, I'm logged in with single sign-on, and this is applicable. The work I'm doing here is applicable and saved against my user ID. Again, we have a very similar looking initial front screen, and we have 2 sections shown, scenarios and org chart. I'll start with the org chart section. This really is almost identical to the org chart application we've just seen. So there's our organizational chart. I'll just pick a style that I think will illustrate this the best. Click on this finance director area of our chart, move it to the top, expand it. I'll just open the positions within this finance division. Okay, so we can see this finance division, some sub-organizational units, 3 shown here in the blue nodes, and also 5 positions that are shown. Now imagine we've been asked to create a credit control organizational unit to sit below this finance division, and we've been asked to move 3 of these existing 5 positions into it. The scenarios section allows us to exactly do that. We can create and model what-if scenarios. Scenarios can be created quite easily, either with a blank sheet of paper, this empty model, or by importing data direct from your existing data source, in this case obviously SAP. I'm going to create that scenario. You can choose, pardon, I could click correctly. Okay, I seem to have a small problem here, but we can, I can tell you that you can import data here from your finance division. We'd import all the existing positions and people. From there, you can drag and drop your people around the organization. You can create additional nodes. Okay, I apologise for that. In my haste, I was selecting an organisational unit before I'd actually given it a name of my scenario. So by giving it a name, it's allowed me to continue. So what we're doing here is importing our existing data straight into a model. And this is some basic information about our model. But really what we want to do is, let's have a look at it. So obviously straight away, as we've imported data, we've got exactly the same structure as we had before. No surprise there. What we want, been asked to do is to create a sub-org unit called credit control. This time I'll remember to actually type the name. I'll just reiterate now that we're working on our own model separately from the SAP data we've imported with model proposed changes. I've created this additional credit control organisational unit, given it a name, just a temporary ID for the purposes of this modelling. I can also then move positions simply by dragging and dropping. I hope you're seeing that via the webcast. I can also, if I've got lots to move, I can flag the ones I want to move and they appear in the box at the bottom, the items basket, and I can move those once selected in one go. Find my new org unit and move it. So now we've got 2 remaining positions here, and in our credit control area we've got our 3 new positions. I'm going to go back to the scenario information and just explain one final point, and that really is about how we can give access to other people. So we've got 2 options here. We can start to share with other people who use the modular application. So if I pick one of my colleagues here, I can choose whether to give him read, modify, or full ownership of this model. Just add him, and when he accesses the application, he can see that in his list of scenarios. Alternatively, I can publish the scenario to anybody, and this really can be anyone who's got access to a web browser. They don't need a license for the end application, and they won't have any ability to change this. I'll just open another tab in my browser, paste the URL into there, hit go, and it just loads a view-only representation of these proposed changes. Give that a few seconds. So really you've got the same thing here, but with none of the functions of how to change it. For example, if I right-click, you can clearly see I can't add or remove nodes here. So we've now seen how we can visualize a model data, but I want to focus today on showing you the latest succession planning functionality that's available. Organizations considering succession planning typically are looking to ensure they identify and grow talent in their organization to meet the long-term strategies of the business. They often have paper-based approaches, as Tom said, 42% in the last Perrin survey, and due to this, the process is manually intensive and limited in its reach. Another common factor is the feeling that not all talent is being captured, and even when it is, whether those talents are compared in a constructive and fair way. Before we move on into the processes and demo, I want to introduce some terminology. And I'll start by doing that I'll just walk you through some of the high-level processes that we've mapped out here. And succession planning is really all about the processes. Tom raised this point earlier, and I'd like to echo it now. The demo I'm about to give will walk us through the succession planning processes shown here. Please note down the left-hand side the roles of employee, manager, and talent management specialist. Firstly, starting in the bottom left corner, we'll build on our obviously now perfect, thanks to SAP TVN org chart and org modeler, organizational structure, and construct our own talent structure known as the job architecture. We'll discuss the organization's requirements and identify key positions as the basis of succession planning. We'll then move on into the middle here to discuss and see how individual talents can be nominated and improved into a talent group. And finally, we'll consider how we will consider and assign potential successors to those key positions and see how that acts as input into the further talent management processes within SAP. some of that terminology. Right at the top of our new talent structure, is known as the job architecture. And it's a structure that's orientated for managing talent and begins with a functional area which contains a collection of job families. A job family includes jobs or positions with similar characteristics. Effectively, this job architecture is our demand for talent. We need to find a supply of talent ready to succeed the positions within our talent structure. On the supply side, we have talents, whether they be employees or external recruits, who we accumulate a profile of information about. This profile includes information provided by the employee, such as education, work experience, their attitudes and mobility, but also information captured through manager assessment, such as potential performance and risk of loss. To enable a talent to be categorized, we use a concept known as talent groups. And you'll see more of this in a moment through demonstration. I'd like to approach the demo in two stages. First, define our talent needs, and then to maintain our talent supply. So let's get into SAP TVN succession planning. This demo again uses data from ROC's own ECC6 Enhanced Pack 4 system and shows SAP TVN 2.0 succession planning with the Service Pack 1 applied. No customization has been made to the SAP TVN application for the purpose of this demo, and I would reiterate that no data is stored in the front-end application, as all data is read and written directly to SAP in real time. In this demo, I'll be accessing the application through the SAP portal and performing the role of the talent management specialist. Again, I'll just increase the size of my screen. Hopefully that gives everyone a clearer view in a moment. First, I'll define our talent needs, which is our demand for talent, and then we'll look at how we can manage our talent pool or our supply of talent. So, defining our talent needs is about building a structure initially, and that's the terminology in SAP is this job architecture. Just give this a few seconds so it's loaded on everyone's screen. Okay. The role of the talent management specialist is to ensure we have suitable talent ready to succeed key positions or jobs in our organization and work with managers to develop high-performing individuals. To enable this, let's have a look at the job architecture. The top node here, labeled Job Architecture Hierarchy, is the root node that allows the talent management specialist to view all the functional areas they've created and that they manage. I'm going to select this Finance and Accounting functional area and expand it to see the job families contained within it. I'm going to pick on the Financial Supervisor job family and again expand to see the jobs contained within it, and now the job Chief Finance or Financial Officer. See the actual positions that reside in our organizational structure, shown here in the talent structure. The purpose of this structure is to enable me as a talent management specialist to manage and visualize the talent in a way that's suitable for that purpose, separate from the organizational structure. Note the color-coded key, so on the right-hand side, so to jog your memory on the different levels we're seeing here. But I'll walk through each level starting from the bottom. Position here is probably a term most of you are familiar with from organizational management. It's a concrete position which can be occupied by an employee or is budgeted to be occupied but is currently not filled, i.e. vacant. Above this, the job is a defined set of responsibilities and qualifications for specific functions. Both those terms are relatively well known in SAP. Moving further up, a job family, such as Financial Supervisor, is a group of jobs and or positions within a functional area that have the same nature of work but require different levels of skill, responsibility or working conditions, such as an example might be sales junior, sales rep, sales executive. Above this, the Finance and Accounting functional area is a collection of job families that share common attributes. These usually relate to a particular business function, such as marketing, sales, or in my example, finance and accounting. This structure, just to reiterate, allows us to manage talent wherever it lies in our business in the way that's sensible to the talent management specialist. So let's look if we, I know I've prepared a job architecture here, but using that as the basis of our demo, let's see how that structure helps us apply and agree and apply our succession planning requirements. First of all, I'm just going to look in more detail at each of these objects, these 4 levels. First of all, the functional area. As I click on the functional area, more details appear on the right. You can see here that a competency has been assigned. This has been read directly from the SAP Qualifications Catalogue and can be applied by the Talent Management Specialist here. Clicking on the job family, Financial Supervisor, I can see competencies are assigned directly, but also inherited through the structure from the functional area. You can also assign successors to a pool at this level if you want to manage succession at this higher level. Moving down to the Chief Financial Officer position. Again, we've got inheritance coming through from functional area, job family, and again, a competency applied directly. But you can also start to store attributes at this level against the job, such as career path, evaluation results, and even set this job as a key job, indicating that you want to perform succession planning upon it. Down to the position, and again, by now, hopefully the familiar inheritance model demonstrated through the competencies, as well as inheritance of the career path attribute. Finally, I want to highlight the fact that you can set key status against the position at this level. And indeed, this position has had its key status set and approved. It's indicated by the information at the bottom of the tab and also by this yellow star that's filled in across the top. So we've now seen how we can populate data at the required level and use the inheritance to distribute to all objects below, as well as mark either a job or a position as key. In this structure shown, we can see that the Chief Finance Officer position has already been marked as key and is shown visually via this yellow star. As a corporate strategy, imagine our company has decided that all key jobs and positions should have at least 3 successors assigned. This is known as bench strength, the number of successors. As you can see from this tab here, currently we only have 2 successors assigned. At this stage, this concludes our definition of talent requirements. I'm just going to flick back to the slides and just move on one. Now, this is the same slide we saw a few minutes ago, talking about the succession planning process. But this time what I've tried to do is group that first demonstration into this left-hand side about defining our talent needs. So we saw how we planned and created the job architecture and then applied some of our succession planning requirements, the need for a bench strength of 3. I'm now going to move into the second part of the demonstration, which is about maintaining the pool or supply of talent and trying to match the demand that we've just created. So let's find out how we can manage our pool of talent and also nominate talent as successors. So I want to consider the other people, the other roles that are playing a part in this process. First of all, let's consider the employee's role. Well, the employee has the ability via employee self-service to maintain his or her talent profile and contribute such information as work experience, education, accomplishments, career goals, and attitude to mobility. This key information is then available to the manager and talent management specialist. The manager's input into succession planning process comes firstly from their involvement in performance management and or the talent assessment process. These processes take place in manager self-service and ensure we capture and assess such information as performance, potential, and risk of loss. As part of the talent assessment in MSS, the manager would also nominate an individual or a talent to a talent group. This process can also be done in succession planning front-end application by the manager who has access to his or her own work area. Moving on to the talent management specialist, or the role I'm performing today through this demonstration. The talent management specialist would own the talent group and would control and approve the nominations to it by ensuring that nominated talent from managers meets the criteria that I've defined for my talent group. I'll demonstrate this now by looking at a talent group that I own called Financial Accounting Management. So I'm going to use the talent groups to go and first of all find my talent group. Financial Accounting Management. Click on it to bring up the details. And you can see here I've got 4 people in this talent management group, 2 approved and 2 nominated. Looks like we've had a recent nomination here, a chap called Gordon Stevens from a manager, and I've been notified about this, and made the decision that I'm happy that this person meets the criteria for nomination to the talent group. So I'm going to change that person's status to approved. Top performer. I can even record my own details against this. Not my real name. This is my friendly portal name. Here, John Mayer, the role I'm playing today. And I can confirm that status. What this does is update the system, the back end, and it refreshes the page here for me to show me that that person is now nominated. The talent management specialists would work with managers to collaborate all the talent within a talent group so they can be compared against each other wherever that talent lies in the business. Talents can be visually compared using a talent grid to compare their performance against potential if required. Since we have a new member of this talent group that I've just approved, I want to consider this person as a successor to the key position of Chief Finance Officer. To do that, I'm going to compare the position that they would be being considered for, Chief Finance Officer, to the information that we hold about the individual talent, Gordon Stevens. So I can compare by searching and finding the position in many ways. This way I'm just going to show you how I'm going to do that through just scaling the organizational chart. These are organizational units down to positions. I'll click on the position to select that. It will open up in the left-hand pane. And also, you can search just by using a listing or a search criteria. In this case, I'm going to search for the person using this approach. Gordon Stevens. It'll open up in the right-hand pane. Let's move this across slightly. Okay, so if I click on the Competencies tab on the position, so these are the competencies inherited through our job architecture that we saw earlier, define what we believe to be the requirements that you need to meet this, to be a successor to this position or to hold this position even. The talent on the right-hand side, through the talent profile, I'm seeing information about the individual competencies that Gordon Stevens has acquired and has assigned to his talent profile. Now here we can see some reasonable match-up between general accounting, strategic awareness, decision-making, and this professional qualification. However, we can see some gaps. So I'm quite happy in some ways to assign this person as a potential successor to the Chief Finance Officer, but I wouldn't at this stage perhaps deem that he's ready in the short term or even immediately. So what I'm going to do is show you how easy it is to assign a successor, and then consider how the successors match up against each other. So I'm going to go and find our new potential successor, Gordon Stevens again, just assign him. And I'm happy to approve that at this point. But because he has some gaps in in qualifications, I'm going to say he's more likely to be ready in medium term. However, we think he's high caliber, so I'm going to rank him as B on a scale. All these scales of the readiness and ranking are fully configurable in the SAP application. I can even store a comment here to remind myself of anything in particular I want to record at the time. Again, my spelling is letting me down. So I'm going to return to the traditional organizational structure view. And see how we can visualize that key position. So straight away I've gone to a saved hierarchy of finance team and opened up the position and also opened up the successors within it. So I've got visualization here within my structure of my 3 successors. I've got indications here of readiness and ranking via these icons. If I click on the Chief Finance Officer position, I can open up the details on the right-hand side. And the Succession tab shows us the list of 3 successors with a bit more detail. And here's even the comment I entered earlier. In addition, we can use the Show Grid feature shown here. And this is a visualization of how these successors compare against each other. This is particularly useful when you're trying to calibrate people against each other. Along the top is our readiness with the scale that we have defined, and the ranking down the left-hand side. So ideally, we want people sat up here in the top right, so they're considered top ranking, but also ready immediately. So while here we can see we've met our requirement of the bench strength of 3, we might want to consider that this is still a reasonable risk to the organization, because there's not really anyone immediately ready or of reasonable ranking that would be ready in the short term. So in summary, returning to our process slide, we've just walked through how the manager would be involved in the nomination procedure, how the employee would, I discussed how the employee would feed information from their talent profile, and we looked at how we compare and then eventually assign successors. That information, as we looked at the qualifications, could be used as the basis to feed into these further processes, which I didn't formally demonstrate here, that occur in SAP, and feed into the talent management processes for development and learning and objective setting. So hopefully, in summary, we've now seen how a talent structure can be built and managed, visualized our current talent, made an informed decision about Gordon Stevens as a successor to the Chief Finance Officer, and assessed Gordon against the Chief Finance Officer position to aid personal development and further prepare that talent to succeed. If you have any questions for Tom or myself, then there's still time to send them in via the chat section using your webinar control panel. But for now, I'd like to say thanks for your time, and I'm going to hand back to Damien to wrap up and facilitate the Q&A session.
Okay, thank you, Tom, and thank you, Stephen, for that. We really appreciate your insights on a very important topic. In terms of time, we have run over slightly, and so what we're going to do is we're just going to basically address the questions after. I'm just going to literally wrap up on this slide, respecting people's diaries. So where to from here? As we can see, there's been a number of business and technology matters that have been sort of dealt with here today, and that obviously need addressing. So we offer the following advice. Either establish a program addressing the long-term business strategy in relation to succession planning, incorporating the elements that Tom discussed earlier on around org structure, position control, skills, process, and usability, or deploy a packaged solution addressing the short-term as well as the long-term needs. And the little graphic there just essentially highlights the fact that there are solutions available to rapidly deploy a high-spec, low-risk solution. Alternatively, engage in an integrated program combining both of the above aspects. As I said, respecting people's times, what we'll do is we'll basically respond to any questions after this event. And so I would just like to finish up by thanking our listeners for your participation in today's webcast. We hope you found the presentation informative and useful. Links to the recording of the webcast will be sent to everyone who registered, and any questions, as I say, that have been sent in, we will be responding to. You will receive an email with a link to a brief survey, and this will provide us valuable feedback regarding the quality of your experience on this web event. And in return for your time completing this short 8-question survey, we would like to offer you the Towers Perrin Executive Survey results. This concludes today's webcast presentation. Thank you and goodbye.